Hi there guys, my name is Zach and welcome to my channel. Amongst other things, I'm a reenactor and a jouster, and today I'm going to be answering 5 more questions from you guys and ones that I hear all the time at events when we're allowed to do events. This particular set of questions is all themed around horses, so if you like horses, enjoy these questions. Question number 1 is, do you all own your own horses? Talking about jousters, particularly modern day jousters. No is the very short answer to that, but this would be a very pointless video if I just gave the short answers. It does depend on where you are in the world. There are a few places in the UK that you can go to where you don't need to own your own horse and you can learn to joust. My group Destrier is one of the very few places, and you can find the link to our Facebook page in the comments. At the time of recording, we're not actually accepting members at the moment, so the best place to go to put yourself on that road if you're in the UK and you're interested would be to talk to Mark Atkinson. He has a stable up in Leeds, and he is where we rent most of our horses from. Now, some of our riders do own their own horses, and in certain places around the world, that is basically the only way that you are going to be able to joust, is if you own your own horses, or you know someone who is going to let you use one of theirs. In the 15th century, usually people did own their own horses. If you were rich enough to own your own armour, then you tended to also be rich enough to own your own horses. But there are some examples of people renting out horses that are particularly trained for the joust back then as well. So while you might own a horse, you might actually rent one for a joust that is particularly good at that event. Question 2 is, does the breed of Destrier still exist? No, it never really did. The idea of breeds and bloodlines, well, the bloodline is kind of around in the medieval period, but it's not as codified as it is today, sorry. So Destrier as a breed doesn't actually exist. Now, if you look online and you find the derivation of the word Destrier, it says that it was related to the word right hand, dexter, and this was probably because when riding to battle, the knight's Destrier was led by the right hand of the page that was leading him, because they would be riding their own horse with their left. I really don't agree with that. I think that is a trying to find a more complicated explanation than actually what we actually need. Destrier, if it means right hand, if that's the link that we're going with, and I'm not a linguist so I don't know, but if it means right hand, well, we know right hand throughout literature, throughout from the Bible onwards, right hand means the powerful arm, the powerful strong strength of the wielder. Okay, the king's right hand is his powerful strong person that he trusts, so therefore the knight's right hand is his powerful strong individual that he trusts. That's his warhorse. So I think that is probably the derivation of where it comes from. And so Destrier in the medieval period is not so much a breed, but a job description. Now, there would be certain bloodlines that would end up being Destriers, but I think the term Destrier is more to be understood as the knight's best horse. So his best warhorse is his Destrier. Yeah, so in truth, the breed Destrier didn't exist, but there are definitely Destriers around because in my opinion at least, it means someone's best warhorse. And those who do own horses certainly have got destriers nowadays. So the next question is, do you use historical sources or do you experiment? Talking about training of man and horse. And by that I mean person and horse, because there are plenty of female jousters and riders. So in the medieval period, they did write a lot down, but very often they can be frustratingly vague by saying things like, do this in the usual way. So they don't write anything down that they assume people to know, which is very frustrating when you're looking back and you're trying to read into it. What actually did they know? What actually did they do? So any study of historical horsemanship needs to be tempered with kind of an experimental archaeology kind of approach. We also like to look at documents from before and after. So that can be really helpful, because that can give you an idea of what they might have known but didn't write down, and things like that. But also it can give you an idea of the developing mindset of what someone intends. Something else that's really useful actually is World War One videos. In World War One, they did a lot of training of cavalry, including training for cavalry charges, and they took some videos of it, and you can find them online. You can find them on YouTube, so do look them up. But that's a really useful way of looking at a technique that was a technique that worked, and then you can backwards engineer that. If you look at those techniques and see where they match up with medieval document images, then that can be a really useful way of understanding the stuff that they don't tell you and the parts that go in between the pictures in the manuscripts. Okay, question number 4 is, were draft horses used in battle? No, not for riding as a knight. They generally, like a lot of the really big horses that we tend to assume were used by knights, actually didn't even exist in the 15th century. They didn't exist until about the 19th century. The big thing, the main reason why we tend to think that draft horses would be useful is because draft horses are big. We assume armor is heavy, so therefore you need a big horse to carry a heavy man in heavy armor. The idea that armor is heavy is incorrect, or I should say the idea that armor is too heavy for a normal horse is incorrect. So therefore you don't need a draft horse. The other issue that you've got, if you were planning on using a draft horse nowadays, is that actually they're very good at pulling weight, but for their weight class they're not as good as holding weight on top, because they also are having to carry their own weight. They can't get as high a speed as other horses. They don't accelerate as fast, and they're not as maneuverable. So in battlefield situations, a draft horse would tend to be a liability more than a help. Okay, and question number 5 is, which horse breed is best for jousting? And this particular question was asked, it said, don't just say about temperament, because that is the classic answer that everyone will give, is what really matters is temperament. So I'm not allowed to give that answer, so apologies. Now, the main reason I think why people say look for temperament is because there are always going to be exceptions to a rule. And every jouster that you talk to, based on their experience, is going to have a different answer to this question. I can only answer based on my experience. If you want a more rounded answer, there's places you can go. there's various Facebook groups where there are different jousters that you can ask, but in my experience I can only answer from that. Now what I would say is the 3 best jousting horses that I have seen so far in my jousting experience, the ones that I would most like to take into a joust, are unfortunately, they've all passed away now. But so part of that that ability that they had was due to experience, because they were getting quite old when I came to know them. So anyway, of those 3, one was a polo pony, one was a Frisian cob cross, and the other one was just a full-on gypsy cob. Now, so what I would say is a cob is probably a good one to start with if you're planning on just jousting. Going in straight lines, being solid, dependable, tend to stop whenever you ask it to, but it's still small enough to go fast and have a good acceleration. If you're planning on doing some melee work as well, then a polo pony would definitely be a good shout there, probably more so than a cob. I can't actually remember, I'm sorry about this, I can't actually remember her breed, so all I can say is polo pony from that point of view. But yeah, something like that, something smaller, slightly faster. But this is again going to depend on you and your weight, because you need to choose a breed and a horse that is capable of carrying you. So there we go. It's probably not as helpful as you'd hoped. If you're starting out, go for a cob. If you're wanting something a bit more maneuverable, if you're planning on doing melee work and battle work as well, then a polo pony is a good shout. And if you're a much more advanced rider, if you're planning on doing the more advanced melee work and things like that, then going for something Spanish would definitely be probably the preferred option. So there we go, guys. 5 questions about horses, 5 answers that I hope are helpful. If you have any more questions that you would like to ask, please do leave them in the comments down below. If I've not explained something fully, then please ask for a clarification down there, and hopefully I'll be able to help you out. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to everyone who has already done that, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye bye.